The studio lights were still on, even though everyone had already left. Olivia stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the dress for the final shoot. Her hands were slightly shaking. It was her 3rd week at the brand. Everything still felt unreal. Until, click. The door behind her locked. She froze. Slowly. She turned around. Marcus Reed was standing there, leaning against the door, watching her, not smiling. "You're still here," he said quietly. Olivia forced a small smile. "Just finishing the styling notes." He didn't respond. He just kept looking at her. The kind of silence. "That makes your chest tighten. Then—" He stepped closer, not fast, not aggressive, but controlled. "You want to grow here, right?" he asked. Olivia nodded. He leaned in slightly, lowered his voice. "Then you need to understand how things really work." And in that moment, Olivia realised this wasn't a fashion job anymore. Olivia Bennett had always believed that if she worked hard enough, stayed focused and kept her head down, she would eventually earn her place in the fashion world. It wasn't just about clothes or trends for her, it was about proving that she could build something for herself without depending on anyone. When she received the offer from one of the fastest rising fashion brands in the city, it felt like everything was finally falling into place. The office itself looked exactly how she had imagined it would be. Open creative spaces, racks of designer pieces, mood boards filled with bold ideas, people moving quickly with purpose, conversations happening in low, confident tones. It felt alive. It felt important. And most of all, it felt like somewhere she belonged. On her first day, everyone seemed welcoming. There was energy, excitement, a sense that things were constantly moving forward. Olivia quickly adapted. She worked longer hours than expected, paid attention to every detail, made sure she didn't make mistakes. Because in an industry like this, mistakes weren't just corrected, they were remembered. Her manager, Marcus Reed, was someone everyone seemed to respect without question. He wasn't loud or overly expressive, but his presence carried weight. When he walked into a room, conversations shifted, attention followed, decisions were made faster. At first, Olivia admired that. It felt like she was learning from someone who knew exactly what he was doing. Their interactions in the beginning were minimal. Short instructions, quick feedback, nothing unusual. But slowly, things started to change in ways that were difficult to explain. It began with small shifts in tone, comments that sounded normal on the surface, but carried something else underneath. "You need to be more adaptable. This industry rewards people who understand unspoken expectations. Not everything is written in contracts." Olivia didn't fully understand what he meant at first, and she didn't ask. She told herself this was part of the learning process, part of stepping into a more competitive environment. The late evenings became more frequent. Tasks started extending beyond her role. Requests came without clear boundaries, and every time she hesitated, even slightly, there was always a response ready for her. "If you want to stay here, you need to prove you're different." That sentence stayed with her. Not because of what it said, but because of how often she heard it. Over time, she started noticing things she hadn't paid attention to before. The way certain employees avoided being alone in specific rooms. The way conversations would suddenly stop when Marcus walked by. The way some team members kept their interactions strictly professional, almost distant, like they were careful not to cross an invisible line. It wasn't obvious. It wasn't something you could easily point at and question. But it was there, and once she noticed it, she couldn't unsee it. Still, Olivia kept going, because walking away from something she had worked so hard to achieve didn't feel like an option. She convinced herself that maybe she was overthinking, maybe this was just how high-pressure environments felt. But deep down, there was a quiet discomfort growing, something she couldn't fully ignore anymore. And then came the evening that changed everything. The office was quieter than usual. Most of the team had already left after a long day of preparation for an upcoming campaign. Olivia stayed back to organise the final styling pieces, wanting everything to be perfect for the next morning. The studio lights were still on, casting sharp reflections across the mirrors. It should have felt like a normal late night, but it didn't. Something about the silence felt heavier, like it was holding something back. She tried to focus on her work, adjusting fabrics, checking details, but the feeling didn't go away. And then, without warning, she heard it. The soft sound of the door behind her closing. Not loud, not sudden, just enough to shift everything. She turned slightly, her heartbeat picking up before she even knew why. And in that moment, without a single word being spoken, she realised she wasn't alone anymore. The moment Olivia turned around and saw Marcus Reed standing there, something inside her immediately shifted. It wasn't fear yet, not fully, but it was awareness. The kind that tells you this situation isn't normal, even if nothing obvious has happened. He didn't move right away. He just stood there near the door, blocking the only exit, his posture relaxed but intentional, like he had all the time in the world. "Still working?" he asked, his voice calm, almost casual. Olivia nodded quickly, trying to keep her tone steady. "Yeah, just finishing the setup for tomorrow." He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he walked slowly toward the centre of the room, his eyes scanning everything before settling back on her. The silence stretched just long enough to feel uncomfortable. "You've been doing well," he said finally. People noticed that. The words should have felt like praise, but they didn't land that way. There was something underneath them, something that made Olivia uneasy. "Thank you," she replied, forcing a polite smile. Marcus stepped closer, not invading her space completely, but close enough that she became aware of the distance. "You understand how competitive this industry is, right?" he continued. Olivia nodded again. "Good," he said. "Because talent alone doesn't get you far here." The way he said it wasn't aggressive, it wasn't even direct, but it carried weight. Olivia felt her grip tighten slightly on the fabric she was holding. "I'm willing to work hard," she said carefully. "I know you are," Marcus replied almost instantly. "That's not the question." Another pause, this one heavier. "The question is, how far you're willing to go." The words didn't come with an explanation. They didn't need one. Olivia felt her chest tighten, her mind trying to process what he meant without jumping to conclusions. "I'm not sure I understand," she said, even though part of her already did. Marcus gave a small, controlled smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "You will," he said. He moved past her slightly, adjusting one of the garments on the rack, as if the conversation wasn't the most important thing happening in the room. "Everyone does eventually." Olivia stayed still, watching him, trying to read the situation without reacting too quickly. "This place runs on more than just creativity," he continued. "It runs on understanding. Unspoken expectations." That phrase again. Unspoken. It didn't feel like guidance anymore. It felt like a warning. "And people who succeed here," he added, turning back toward her, "are the ones who don't make things complicated." Olivia swallowed, her thoughts racing but her expression controlled. "I just want to do my job well," she said quietly. Marcus stepped closer again, this time just enough to shift the balance of the space between them. "Then don't overthink it," he said. "Opportunities like this don't come twice." There it was. Not a direct demand. Not a clear statement. But something that pressed on her decision without giving her anything solid to push against. That was the strategy. Nothing obvious. Nothing she could easily call out. Just enough pressure to make her feel like the responsibility was hers. The room felt smaller now, the air heavier, the silence louder than before. Olivia realised something in that moment that made everything clearer. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't personal. This was practiced. A system built over time, refined, repeated. And the worst part was how normal it was made to feel. Marcus straightened slightly, his tone shifting back to something more neutral. "Think about what you want from this," he said. "And decide how serious you are about it." He turned toward the door, unlocking it without looking back. The sound of the lock clicking open felt louder than anything else in the room. "We'll talk again," he added before stepping out. And just like that, he was gone. The room fell silent again, but it wasn't the same silence as before. Olivia stood there, exactly where she had been, but nothing about the situation felt the same anymore. Because now she understood something she hadn't before. This wasn't about work, and whatever came next wasn't going to be simple. The next morning, everything looked exactly the same as it always did. The office was alive again, people moving quickly, conversations flowing, fabrics being adjusted, meetings starting and ending like nothing unusual had happened. If someone had walked in without knowing anything, they would have seen a perfectly normal, high-functioning fashion brand. And that was the problem. Because Olivia now knew it wasn't normal. Not completely. Not underneath. She stepped into the workspace with the same routine as before, greeting a few colleagues, placing her bag down, opening her laptop, but her mind wasn't focused on work anymore. It kept replaying the night before. Every word, every pause, every look, trying to understand it again, trying to see if she had misunderstood something. But she hadn't. The more she thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't confusion. This was design. She started paying attention to things she had ignored before. The way certain employees avoided eye contact when markers passed by. The way conversations would shift direction suddenly. The way some doors stayed closed longer than they needed to. Small details, but once you noticed them, they started connecting. Around midday, while she was organising a rack near the back of the studio, she felt someone step closer to her. It was subtle, careful. "You stayed late yesterday," a quiet voice said. Olivia turned slightly. It was Ava Collins, one of the senior stylists. She wasn't loud, not very social, but people respected her work. Olivia nodded. "Yeah, just finishing things up." Ava didn't respond immediately. She looked around briefly, making sure no one was paying attention. Then she asked in a lower tone, "Did he talk to you?" The question landed instantly. Olivia didn't need to ask who she meant. There was only one person that question could be about. For a moment, Olivia hesitated, not because she didn't understand, but because saying anything out loud made it real in a different way. "Yeah," she said quietly. Ava held her gaze for a second longer than usual. "What did he say?" Olivia exhaled slowly, choosing her words carefully. "Nothing. Direct," she replied. "Just expectations." Ava gave a small nod, like she had heard that answer before. Too many times. "That's how it starts," she said. There was no emotion in her voice. Not surprise, not anger, just certainty. Olivia felt something tighten in her chest. "So it's not just me," she said, more to confirm than to ask. Ava didn't answer right away. She looked away briefly, then back at Olivia. "It's never just one," she said. That sentence changed everything. Not because it was shocking, but because it confirmed what Olivia had already started to feel. This wasn't an isolated moment. It was a pattern. A system that had been running quietly for a long time. "Why doesn't anyone say anything?" Olivia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ava's expression shifted slightly, not into fear, but into something heavier. "Some people tried," she said. "They don't work here anymore." The words were simple, but the meaning behind them was clear. This wasn't just about speaking up. It was about consequences. Olivia looked around the office again, but this time she saw it differently. The silence wasn't accidental. It was maintained, carefully, intentionally. "And the rest?" Olivia asked. Ava gave a faint, almost tired expression. "They learned to survive it," she said. That word stayed with Olivia. Survive, not succeed. Not grow. Survive. Ava stepped back slightly, as if the conversation itself was already too much exposure. "Just be careful," she added quietly, "and don't think you can change it overnight." Then she walked away, leaving Olivia standing there with more clarity than she had ever wanted. For the rest of the day, Olivia couldn't go back to seeing things the same way. Every interaction felt layered now. Every glance carried meaning. The place that once felt like an opportunity now felt like something else entirely. Something controlled, something calculated. But along with the fear, something else had started to grow. It wasn't confidence, not yet, but it was awareness. And awareness changes the way you respond. Because once you see the pattern, you can't pretend it isn't there anymore. And for Olivia, that meant one thing. Whatever happened next, she wouldn't be walking into it blindly. When the message came through later that evening, Olivia didn't feel the same confusion she had the night before. This time, there was no uncertainty about what it meant or where it would lead. "Stay back tonight. We need to continue our conversation." The words were simple, but now she could see the pattern behind them clearly. She stared at the screen for a few seconds before locking her phone, her reflection faintly visible on the dark glass. The difference now wasn't that she wasn't afraid. The fear was still there, steady and real. The difference was that she understood what she was walking into. And that changed how she moved. She stayed later again, but this time it wasn't hesitation that kept her there. It was a decision. The office slowly emptied just like before. One by one, lights dimmed, voices disappeared, footsteps faded into silence.
The same setting.
The same setup, but not the same Olivia. When she finally walked toward the studio area, everything felt sharper, more defined. The silence wasn't just quiet anymore, it was intentional. The door was already slightly open this time. No need for him to call her in. He knew she would come. Olivia pushed the door open and stepped inside. Marcus Reed was standing near the large mirror again, adjusting something on the rack as if this was just another normal moment. "You came," he said without turning. "I said I would," Olivia replied, her voice steady. He turned slowly, studying her expression for a moment. Something about her was different, and he noticed it immediately. "Good," he said, walking a few steps closer. "That makes things easier." Olivia didn't move. She stayed where she was, keeping the distance between them intentional this time. Marcus paused slightly, as if recalibrating. "I assume you've thought about what we discussed," he said. "I have," Olivia replied. There was no rush in her voice, no hesitation. "Just control." He watched her more closely now. "And?" he asked. Olivia held his gaze. "Before I answer, I want to understand something," she said. That wasn't what he expected. It was subtle, but it shifted the tone of the conversation immediately. "Understand what?" he asked. "How long this has been happening," she said. The question landed differently this time. It wasn't confusion anymore. It was direct. Marcus's expression didn't change much, but there was a slight pause before he responded. "You're asking the wrong question," he said. Olivia shook her head slightly. "No," she replied. "I think I finally started asking the right ones." The silence that followed wasn't comfortable anymore. It wasn't controlled. It was uncertain. And that was new. Marcus stepped closer, trying to regain that control. "You're overthinking this," he said, his tone slightly firmer now. "This is simple. You either understand how things work here, or you don't." Olivia didn't step back. That was the first real break in his pattern. "No," she said quietly. "It's not simple. It's just been made to look that way." Another pause. Longer this time. Marcus studied her face, trying to read whether this was hesitation or resistance. And for the first time, it wasn't clear. "You're putting yourself in a difficult position," he said. "I'm already in one," Olivia replied. That answer shifted something again. Small, but enough. Because now the pressure he was applying wasn't landing the same way. It wasn't bending her response. It was being recognized. And once pressure is recognized, it loses its strength. Marcus leaned back slightly, his tone changing again, trying a different approach. "Think carefully," he said. "Opportunities like this don't last forever." Olivia took a slow breath, her expression steady. "Neither do systems like this," she said. That was the moment the balance changed. Not dramatically. Not completely. But enough for him to feel it. The control he had relied on wasn't gone, but it wasn't absolute anymore. And that uncertainty was something he wasn't used to. Olivia reached into her bag slowly, her movements calm, deliberate. Marcus's eyes followed the motion, his attention sharpening. She pulled out her phone and held it in her hand, not raising it, not making a scene, just letting it be visible. "I didn't come here unprepared this time," she said. The words were quiet, but they carried weight. Real weight. For the first time, Marcus didn't respond immediately. There was a brief pause where the situation stood completely exposed. Not hidden, not controlled, just real. And that was enough to change everything. For a few seconds after Olivia said it, the room went completely still. But this time the silence wasn't controlled. It was uncertain, like something had shifted, and neither of them could ignore it anymore. Marcus's eyes stayed fixed on the phone in her hand, before slowly lifting back to her face, his expression still composed on the surface, but no longer as solid as it had been before. There was tension now, visible, real, and harder to hide. "You think that changes anything?" he said quietly. his voice lower but sharper than before. Olivia didn't rush her response, she didn't need to, because the balance in the room had already changed. "It already has," she replied. Her tone calm but firm. Marcus took a small step forward, trying to regain control. "You're making a mistake," he said. "You don't understand how this works." Olivia held his gaze without stepping back. "No," she said, "I understand exactly how it works. That's why I didn't stop at just one moment." That sentence made him pause. "Just briefly, but enough. What does that mean?" he asked. And for the first time there was a hint of something different in his voice. Not authority, not certainty, but doubt. Olivia took a slow breath. "It means I wasn't the only one who noticed," she said. "And I'm not the only one who's been documenting it." The room felt tighter now. The control he had relied on wasn't gone. But it wasn't stable anymore. Marcus's jaw tightened slightly. "You're bluffing," he said. But the confidence behind it wasn't complete. Olivia didn't react to that. She didn't argue. She didn't try to prove anything in that moment, because she didn't need to. The uncertainty was already doing the work for her. "Maybe," she said quietly. "Or maybe this is the first time someone didn't stay quiet." That line landed heavier than anything before, not because it was loud, but because it was true, and truth, when spoken at the right moment, doesn't need volume to carry weight. Marcus leaned back slightly, recalculating. Searching for control in a situation that no longer followed his pattern. "Even if you go forward with this," he said, "what do you actually get out of it?" Olivia didn't hesitate this time. "That's not the point," she replied. "Then what is?" he asked. And there it was, the question he hadn't needed to ask before, because before things were predictable. Controllable, but not anymore. Olivia looked at him steadily. "It's about what you don't get to do anymore," she said, and that was the moment something broke. Not visibly, not dramatically, but internally, in the structure he had built over time, because that structure depended on silence, on hesitation, on fear, and for the first time, it wasn't there in front of him. Olivia lowered her phone back into her bag, her movements calm, controlled. "What happens next doesn't stay in this room," she said. "And it's not just my decision anymore." Marcus didn't respond. Not immediately, because for the first time, there was no simple way to respond, no direct pressure that would reset the situation, no clean line that would bring control back. Olivia turned toward the door, her hand pausing on the handle for a brief second before opening it. The sound wasn't heavy this time. It didn't feel like something closing in. It felt like something opening up. She stepped out into the hallway where everything looked the same as it always had. People working, lights on, conversations continuing. But beneath that surface, something had already changed, even if no one could fully see it yet. Because once something is exposed, it doesn't go back to being invisible over the next few days. Things started moving quietly at first. Conversations behind closed doors, sudden meetings, shifts in behaviour that people tried to hide but couldn't fully control. The silence that had once protected the system started breaking, not loudly, but enough. Olivia didn't stay to watch every outcome unfold. She didn't need to, because the decision she had made was never about controlling the ending. It was about changing the direction. That night, sitting alone in her apartment, everything felt different. Not easier, not perfect, but lighter in a way she hadn't felt before, because she wasn't carrying the same weight anymore. She had walked into that place believing she had no options, believing the system was bigger than her, stronger than her, untouchable, but she was wrong, because sometimes the power isn't in controlling everything. Sometimes it's in refusing to accept what's wrong, and once that refusal exists, even quietly, even in just one person, it becomes enough to change everything, because the real choice was never just about the job or dignity. The real choice was whether she would stay silent, or finally be heard,